Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Allen Ruddock trains business owners in how to use LinkedIn. Through his LinkedIn Mastery 50/50 workshop, he also helps raise funds for small charities. He's a big fan of networking too. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today, Allen.
Oh, it's very kind of you to invite me, Liz. I'm really looking forward to chatting to you.
Now, I know that you run a number of businesses and wear a number of different hats, but I think you started in finance. Can you tell me something about your career path and how you've got to where you are now?
Yeah, well, after graduation, I started training as an accountant, but I couldn't get on with company law, so I never actually qualified. But I moved into implementing accounting systems and then ended up working for a variety of large financial institutions as a project and program manager, implementing systems and business change across the world, really. I've been lucky enough to go to a wide variety of places around the world.
Oh, tell me some of the places you've been.
It started with some time in New York.
Oh, nice.
And then a short visit to France, and then places like Singapore, Hong Kong, 23 hours in Thailand. I only managed 23 hours in Thailand on a round trip. And then I've also worked in the Middle East, in Dubai, Saudi Arabia and Bahrain.
And so were those big corporate companies that you were working for at that time?
Yeah, for the stuff in the Far East was all while I was working for Standard Chartered. Mm-hmm. Stuff in the Middle East once I'd become an independent consultant.
Right. And so at what point in your career journey did you decide to start your own business?
Well, I'd been made redundant once before in the city, and then when I was working for Standard Chartered, it came to crunch time again. They didn't have any roles in the UK. I wasn't in a position to relocate the family to the Far East. So I took redundancy for a second time and decided to start a business with a former colleague. And we thought, well, we're good project managers, people will buy us. And of course, it doesn't work like that. You've got to know how to run a business, how to market it. So we had a real roller coaster of a ride for a few years until he gave up and went back into corporate life. And I decided to start again, and this time get myself educated on how to run and market a business.
Yeah. And so what did you do differently then once you've kind of got those skills?
The key skills that I learned were that you have to really understand your target market. And when you understand your target market, you'll know what content will really appeal to them and where to place that content, because you'll know where they hang out. Those were the big three lessons for me. And for me, as a project and program management consultant, it was all LinkedIn and Twitter and good content about running projects and program offices. So that's what I started doing.
Yeah, I think it's like that for a lot of people when they start out in business. They've got a great idea for their business, but like you say, unless you know how to actually run a business, you're not going to get very far.
No, indeed. I mean, that led me into one of my later businesses, which was the Guildford Business Hub, which was all about helping startups get to understand all the different aspects of running their business. But that's another story.
We might come back to that in a bit.
Yeah.
So how many businesses are you currently running?
At the moment, I've got sort of three distinct businesses. The hub itself is in hibernation. Mm-hmm. I've got a property business which I'm closing down, which is all a legacy of my marriage that ended 5 years ago. And I've still got some fingers in the project management field. I still run a business there that sells licenses for software to help train project managers to do the job properly.
Right.
It's all about a simulation tool, and I sell licenses. I'm a UK reseller it's a Swiss-based company.
Yeah. But I think the main thing you're concentrating on is around LinkedIn, isn't it?
It is indeed, yeah. So when I learned how to market myself, as I said, LinkedIn was one of the key platforms. And in fact, LinkedIn generated my first lead and generated virtually all of my business for that project management consultancy when I started back in 2010, and enabled me to turn it into a six-figure business for the next 6-7 years.
What is it about LinkedIn, do you think, that enables it to work in that way and work so well?
I think, unlike a lot of the other social media platforms, LinkedIn does have more of a professional focus. It is becoming a bit more personable, shall we say. There's a lot more personal sort of content on there, but it is still very much a business-focused platform. And it has so many business users on there. Over 70% of the world's professionals are on LinkedIn. And it's the place where you can find, connect and engage with your ideal target market, especially if you're selling B2B.
And so tell me about your business then, and how you're using LinkedIn and what it is you help your clients with.
Right, so I set up Link Business alongside the other things that I was doing at the time to generate some additional income, because we were getting into the property world, and mortgage brokers like to see other income besides property income if you're in that sort of world. So the idea was that LinkedIn was going to provide that other income, but it's now the core of what I do. And I teach people how to use LinkedIn to grow a business, just as I did when I set up my second project management consultancy. So it's all about understanding the target market on LinkedIn, how to create great content for them, the sort of posting and engagement techniques that you need to have to convert those potential clients into real leads that want to buy from you.
And so what kind of clients are you working with? Are they from a particular sector, or is it from all sorts of different backgrounds?
It's all sorts of different backgrounds, but I tend to focus on small to medium-sized businesses. So I'm looking for solo entrepreneurs or business owners that have got sort of 1 to 10 employees, something of that sort of size, because I think that's where I can make the biggest impact. But I also work a lot with local charities. From the outset, when I started the networking for the linked business, I came into contact with a number of small local charities that needed help on LinkedIn. They didn't really know what they were doing, so I helped them. I set them up LinkedIn company pages. I trained their fundraising teams how to use the platform properly. I got them involved with my LinkedIn community to help promote their activities and to find and get them corporate sponsors.
Do you find that sort of small charities think that maybe LinkedIn isn't the place for them? Do they see it as very business orientated and perhaps not where a charity would do well?
Yes, quite a few charities do, but the enlightened ones are getting switched on to the fact that actually, if they want to connect and engage with local corporates to get small businesses in the local area supporting them, that actually LinkedIn is probably the best way to do that. And that's really starting to get some traction with the charities that I'm supporting.
So how important is it to have a really good LinkedIn profile, whether that's a business page or a personal profile?
It's absolutely fundamental. People will search for you. If you come into contact with somebody before they buy from you, they'll want to find out more about you. So they'll go to good old Google and they'll type in your name or maybe something about you or your business name. And in the top of those results will be, probably in the top 3, your profile on LinkedIn or your business page on LinkedIn. And they will go to LinkedIn and check you out because it's the most trusted source on social media. It's well over twice as trusted as Facebook and even more times trusted than Twitter. So it's a place where people go to check you out because on there they can actually see who they're. Well, if you've got a good profile, they'll see who they're talking to because they'll see your picture. They'll see your background, your experience. They'll see your recommendations. They'll see the content you're putting out there. So if you create that really good first impression, they'll be much more inclined to think about doing business with you.
Yeah. So what tips would you give charities for creating their profile on LinkedIn?
So for a charity, it's important to have a good company page for the charity, and then it's good to get as many of the employees, volunteers and supporters engaged with that company page to spread the message. And that's what I teach the charities when I run my free training sessions for them. So something with COVID, we did a lot of online networking, which is how you and I met. And I decided that I needed to expand the reach of my support for local charities. So I created this group on LinkedIn called the Linked Business Charity Support Group. And the idea is that any small to medium-sized UK charity can join the group and get free training and support, including weekly calls that I run for them to come in, find out how to use LinkedIn, get their questions answered, keep them up to date so that they can really leverage the platform.
That sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
And so what kind of successes have you seen the charities that you've helped get from this?
Well, give you one example, which we're going to write up as a little case study, but one of the people I've worked with over the years with LinkedIn in his previous charity he was working for, and he's now working for another charity, but I encouraged him to put stuff out to his connections, and he put a post out about a grant application that they were putting out, and then messaged directly a number of people asking them to support the post. And because he had the right connections, a load of us piled in and actually clicked through on the links, put our comments in to support the post. And he saw a threefold increase in the amount of support he was getting for this application for some charity, for some funding to build a new playground for his charity, which supports local disabled and handicapped children. So it's a brilliant way of getting the message out there, as well as getting supporters engaged.
Yeah. And so what kinds of charities have you got involved with?
Oh, I've got a mental health charity. I've got a couple of cancer charities, a couple of children's charities, all sorts of different charities. But it's open to any charity that supports a small or a local community or a regional community, and the idea is just to help them recover from the pandemic and start to raise some funds. And we have a way of helping them raise funds as well. Besides training them on how to use LinkedIn, I also run a whole series of workshops and whatnot for corporate clients. And I've created this specifically this LinkedIn Mastery 50/50 workshop. It's an online half-day workshop. It's £99, and it's called 50/50 because you get to nominate a local charity of your choice that will get 50% of that £99 fee. Yeah. So that's a great way of raising money. They get more support from their sponsor, from their corporates. The corporates get to learn how to use LinkedIn, and they'll be encouraged to support their local charities through the course as well. And it raises money for the charity, which is absolutely great. And then if that corporate then buys anything else from me, sort of one-to-one services, or goes on to buy my online courses or anything like that, 20% of any further revenue they generate or they pay me goes to that self-same charity as well.
Brilliant. That sounds really good. I don't think I've come across anything else quite like that.
No, I've always run workshops with a sort of donation element in them. In the past for the local charities that I worked with in my area, but I was just sort of thinking, how can I actually make this worthwhile for more charities? And I thought, well, let's just give half of the workshop, and if we can get more people onto the workshops. And get 50% of the value to the charities themselves, that would be just fantastic. So that's what we're doing. It's in its infancy. There are a bunch of workshop dates up on the calendar, but it's in its infancy. So I'm looking to really get it promoted and drive things forward.
Brilliant. Now, obviously, you come across a lot of charities who are looking for corporates to provide sponsorship and so on. Do you ever find it the other way around, where you've got small businesses who are looking for a charity to support?
Yes, from time to time I do. They're not sure how to go about it, or they're not sure what they will get from the relationship. So I'm always very happy to talk to corporates about the benefits of working with local charities. It's something I've done over the years with a number of different charities, and it can really improve their standing in the local community. And it really is a win-win situation for the charity and for the local business if they get involved.
Now let's have a little chat now about networking, which is how you and I met.
Yes.
So I know that networking is something that you place a lot of importance on. How are your businesses benefiting from networking?
Networking for the LinkedIn business is absolutely fundamental. Pre-COVID, most of my business came from attending local networking meetings face to face. And then when COVID struck, it all moved online, and networking has been the lifeblood of my business. It's fundamental to helping me grow and build the business.
And have you gone back to doing face-to-face, or have you continued with online?
I now do a mix of both. I think face-to-face is brilliant because it enables you to build relationships faster. But if you put the commitment into online and do it in the right way, then you can build those relationships online as well. For example, one group I joined, based in Yorkshire, but they have some people joining them from around the country. There's a guy just down the road from me, actually, in Woking, which is about sort of 15-minute drive away. I met him on an online meeting in Yorkshire, based in Yorkshire, and now we've met face to face in the local area. So it's quite incredible. But that group has been really good, and so good, in fact, that they were running a networking day and an expo combined. And so I decided, well, let's just jump on the train and go up there for a couple of days. So I actually went up and met them face to face, because just to cement the online relationships, and it was just tremendous fun. And everyone said, it's so great to meet you in person. We got to know you online, but it's even better to meet you in person. So
yeah.
I think it's really, really good.
So have you got any advice that you would give to small business owners around networking if it's something that they haven't done much of?
Yeah. I'd say there's two things that are really, really important. Firstly, know what you're going to the networking meeting for. Have a purpose in your meeting, and make sure that you set your mindset for that purpose before you go to the meeting. I call it setting your RAS, your reticular activating system. This is, slight sidetrack, but if you go and test drive a car for the next few days afterwards, everywhere you go, you see exactly that car and exactly that colour wherever it is. I mean, when my ex-wife first got pregnant, everywhere I went, I saw pregnant women.
Yes.
It wasn't that there weren't pregnant women there before, but my mind wasn't focused on them. And that's the same with networking. If you go with something that you want to achieve from that networking meeting, whether it's face-to-face or online, you are much more likely to pick up and find it if you've got it set in your mind. Whereas if you just turn up and think, I'm just going to a networking meeting, no focus, then you won't really understand, you won't really get the maximum benefit out.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is networking is about consistency. It's about, which is same is true of any marketing, really. And I likened it to a sponge when I've talked about LinkedIn, and networking is the same. If you've got a dry sponge and you put some water in it, nothing comes out the bottom. And it's not until you've saturated that sponge that you start to get the droplets coming out of the bottom. And networking is the same. If you just turn up once, it's like adding a couple of drops of water to a dry sponge. Nothing will come out. But if you keep going back and you keep turning up and showing up authentically and talking the right sort of thing about the right sort of things, you will start to see leads coming out of the bottom of that networking sponge.
Yeah, it takes a while, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And it's not just about the people in the room, it's about networking through the room. I get a lot of business from people recommending me to people they know outside of the room. And I know that's true of other people that attend the same networking meetings as me. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, the hub that you mentioned earlier on, which you said is kind of on ice at the moment, was that something that had a networking element to it?
Yes, it had a networking element to it almost by accident, because whenever you get a bunch of business people together, they tend to network, because it's networking is just chatting and talking about things that are going on in your life and your business. So it always had a networking element to it, but it was much more than just networking. It was about providing a core set of business skills to help the business owners attending the meetings to grow and develop their business, to find out all those things that I didn't know when I set my first business up. And it was always at the back of my mind that's why I was there. I was really trying to help people avoid the mistakes that I'd had, that I'd made, and to help them and to give them a safe space where they could come along and talk about the issues that they have. Because quite often business owners don't like to sort of put their hand up and say, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
But if you create a supportive group that feels safe for them, then they're more likely to raise their hand and say, I have a problem. Can we deal with this, and can you get some help? So I used to, part of the group was we'd run regular mastermind sessions in the group. So instead of having a presentation one, we could be bring your challenge to the table, and collectively we'll sort it out and help you. Those sessions were always hugely powerful.
Yeah, it can be really useful. Can you see that the hub coming back at all?
I'd like to, but it's a lot of work to get it back up and running, because the membership has dissipated and moved on over sort of nearly 2 years. So it's a case of getting out there and regenerating a membership. Also the dynamics. I used to get donated the space by a hotel to run the session. The economics of the hospitality industry have gone through the floor, so the chances of getting a free venue are probably pretty slim. I haven't asked yet, but I dare say it's probably pretty slim. So I've got to make sure that the financial side of it works, or that it was never designed to make me a millionaire or anything like that. It was always designed to cover its costs and do some good for the local business community. So yes, I've got several people asking me about it. I've got somebody else interested in helping me run it, and I've even recorded a little video sort of saying, we might put it back out there again. I haven't put it out yet, but it's just about finding the right amount of time to be able to put behind it, because to make it useful, I've got to get a bunch of speakers that are prepared to come along and talk about the right business subjects as well. Because as much knowledge and experience as I've got, people don't want to hear me every day. Every time they come along, they want to hear other people's experiences as well.
So just finally then, Alan, if people are interested in finding out more about you or your businesses, and in particular the training where 50% goes to charities, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, the best way is to connect with me on LinkedIn. So I'm easy to find because my name is spelt slightly differently to most people. So it's Allen, Allen, and Ruddock, Ruddock. Pop that in the search engine on LinkedIn, and I'll come up as the top search point. And so connect with me on LinkedIn, and let's have a conversation.
Lovely. Well, thank you for being my guest, and I hope that more charities will find you because of this podcast, and even more money can be generated for them.
That'd be fantastic. Thanks very much for having me, Liz.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.